I need a video idea. What game should I talk about? There's got to be a game that I've been wanting to talk about. Eventually, 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 maybe. It's Glover. I've had this game since I was like a whopping 1 year old. It was one of the few N64 games I had growing up. Since our arsenal of games was so small, I found myself defaulting to playing this one quite a bit as a kid. This copy is literally the same copy I've had all of these years. And even though this game stood toe-to-toe with games like Star Fox 64 and GoldenEye for my attention, it definitely was never put at the top of my nostalgia pedestal like those games have been. The memories I have associated with this game are very, weird, to say the very least. A game that both freaked me out, intimidated me, but at the same time was oddly charming and memorable in a way. The noises, the music, the atmosphere, something about this game sticks with you, even if I've only ever gotten like 25% through it. Yeah, despite this game being a huge ingredient to my nostalgia smoothie, I've never beaten it. So you know what? Fuck it. Let's play it. Let's actually sit down and beat Glover. Or at least try to. And somehow, despite this game sitting on my shelf for 25 years, I'll be playing it basically completely in the dark about most of the game. I've never seen much of any footage past the first few hours of this game. The only real impressions I have going in is that I remember the game being really, really hard, but I was also like a baby idiot loser 3-year-old back then, so it probably won't be anywhere near as difficult. I hope. I opted to play the N64 version because, obviously, it was the one I grew up with, and I've heard the PS1 and PC ports are kinda poo-poo diapers, and you may be wondering why I'm not just playing the newer Switch or Steam port. You'd have to have quite a few loved ones hostage to make me give any money to that company, but I'll get into that a little later, probably. It's Glovin time! Wow, is that something I really wrote in this script? I swear, I did not write that ironically. Man, sometimes I genuinely think I'm just some cringy Nintendo nerd YouTuber trying really, really hard not to be. So Glover starts with a funny little cutscene where Glover and his brother, Glover number 2, I don't know, are the gloves of a wizard, and one falls into a pot of bad stuff and turns evil, oh no, and the wizard is turned into stone, and Glover is thrown out the window, and yada yada yada. The main takeaway is that the evil glove is the left-handed glove. What are you trying to say about lefties, Glover? But yeah, right after that cutscene, you're thrown right into the hub, which... Oh yeah, this is all coming back to me now. I know this is a pretty exhaustively talked about part of the game, but the first impressions this game gives you is so strange. Like, neat idea. Hub World is evil and gets less evil as you get through the game. Mario Sunshine owns you a paycheck, I get it. But like, does it have to be this evil to start with? A deep red fog with just the sound of wind and occasional evil laughter in the background? This is really unsettling to be thrown into out the gate. It's, without a doubt, the most prominent aspect of the game that stuck with me all of these years. I can almost remember the exact feeling of dread and fear coursing through my body being greeted to this right after booting up this weird glove game I had. I remember not wanting to wander too far around this hub because it was just so eerie and unsettling. You get like jump scared by a farting chicken if you go too far. It's fucked up, man. I don't think many games I'd played at this point in my life had this decadent of an atmosphere. The hub itself really isn't much to write home about, just some level entrances and pretty much nothing else, honestly. I really did want to talk about this first impression the game gives you because I think it's oddly confident in a way. Just some random platformer about a gosh darn glove, starting with one of the most potently unsettling feelings in any game I had played up to that point. It's just so cool, I don't know. And this unfounded confidence is definitely reflective of the game as a whole, but I'll get into that later. Anyways, Glover is a 3D platformer. Shocker. You go from point A to point B in each level with a bunch of collectible garibs, I think they're called, to find in between. It's really simple on the outside, but as you bite into this simple platforming sandwich, you realize there's a lot of ingredients. It's nothing but simple. The main gimmick to Glover is that you have this little ball that you need to roll to the end of each level. You can dribble it, throw it, smack it, jump on it, but if the ball falls off the stage or gets hit, it explodes and Glover screams bloody murder. The ball is extremely unwieldy. It bounces around and the physics can be really hard to predict. I wouldn't say it doesn't feel like you have control exactly, but just feels like there's a really steep learning curve to how the ball functions within the game's physics engine. It honestly is such a unique concept for a platformer. Your ball becomes less of a hindrance and more of a platforming tool as the game goes on. There were plenty of times I was struggling with a section, and it was just because I had forgotten I don't have to bring the ball with me in that scenario. I just kind of felt better with the ball in my Glover hand. That's mainly because, despite this game's issues, and don't worry, there are plenty of them, this game's control scheme is excellent. The way you dribble and throw and all those other things feels so intuitive and fluid. Like, look how I'm just dribbling the ball over these gaps here. It feels kind of amazing when you get it right. That's something I definitely didn't appreciate as a kid, but very much appreciate now. This is a really creative concept for a 3D platformer, and, mechanically at least, executed pretty damn well. Glover himself, like minus Ball Glover, is a little stiff though. Some of his movements could definitely be a bit snappier. He has this cool cartwheel move, but it kind of feels like complete shit, and is the most easily buffered move I've ever felt in a video game. Like, here, I pressed the cartwheel input before getting hit, and it came out like a solid 10 seconds later once I landed. I do kind of think Glover's slower, chunkier feel could be by design though. The devs definitely wanted you to like using the ball, and if they made Glover really fast and fluid to control, it would have led to a lot of players just putting the ball down for every platforming obstacle that doesn't require it, which would have kind of been boring. The juxtaposition of Glover and Glover with ball is kind of neat. Like I said before, there are plenty of instances where I used the ball not because I needed to, but because I wanted to, which I feel is a clear sign that, mechanically, the game is succeeding. That being said, the game didn't always feel like it was rewarding me for wanting to use that ball. The game's level design can be rough. Real rough. Getting from point A to point B may sound simple, like a jump here, an enemy there, but the way the terrain and platforms are laid out does not lend itself to a comfortable experience. I think I fully get where those childhood memories of this game being difficult come from. It's just very, very unforgiving. Platforms have sloped edges constantly, so if you start to slip, you're falling to your death. You can slightly misalign an angle on a thrown ball and oop, it's off the edge, teehee. There were so many tense moments where I was just holding my breath trying to traverse this ball around. I think that's neat on paper, maybe occasionally, but the game is constant with it. The second world, the carnival one, is an extremely fast difficulty spike in this aspect. Having a ton of pits to slip down, spikes to hit, enemies that just throw your shit around, it's a lot. This was as far as I got as a kid, and I can 1000% see why. It suddenly demands a lot from you. And in some games, I don't mind pacing like that, but man, it's harsh in this one. Game overs just send you back to the title screen, so you gotta trek back to that level after every game over. The amount of precision and finesse these levels take sometimes is pretty intense, so you're gonna be spending a lot of time walking back and forth in this hub. So no wonder my younger self would put down the game after 2 worlds. It demands some serious patience out of you, something little me did not have, and big me doesn't really have either, truthfully. But seriously, in 1998, analog sticks had only been out for 2 years at that point. People were probably ripping their hair out over this game. I feel the level design would have been way more fun, especially for a kid, without that much specific precision. Like I said before, the controls are well done, and the physics feel good. It would have been extremely fun if they gave you more of a playground for these mechanics. They don't even give you the damn ball in the hub world to experiment with. Now that I mention it, there really aren't many open levels at all. Maybe 1 or 2, but pretty much every level is just a linear sequence of platforming challenges, sometimes with a wee bit of backtracking. I don't mind this structure exactly, but I just don't think the level design was really doing the mechanics any favors most of the time. Every once in a while, you'd have a little taste of the mechanics in harmony with the level design, but it was pretty rare. And feels especially bad during boss fights. I swear, some 3D platformers just need to opt out of boss fights altogether. I'm getting so sick of subpar to bad boss fights in this genre. These suck so bad. They're either way too easy or way too stupidly difficult. For example, this dinosaur boss, you just roll the ball down the hill and hit him. Easy. I didn't even look where I was throwing the ball and beat him in a minute. Then there's this Frankenstein boss, where he walks around this tiny area, gets electrocuted, and can pop your ball in one hit. You have to ground pound these platforms to change the height of the platform on the other side, and you have to quickly think of how to set these up to make a staircase to get to the top of where the button is, while avoiding him electrocuting the actual platforms themselves, while doing this very precise dribbling to get up the stairs you made. And it's like way too much, and way too easy to die. And if you get game over, it's back to the hub, and you gotta watch this ridiculously long cutscene every time. Thank God my awesome original hardware N64 copy of this game has the speed up hotkey, or I would have lost my mind. But yeah, boss fights are pretty bad. It sucks too, because I feel like the mechanics could have led to some really cool ideas for bosses. You get like the faintest taste of what could have been, but it just falls on its face each time. This boss literally got stuck and I was soft locked, so I had to purposely get a game over to reset him. So fun. Honestly, enemies in general in this game aren't really anything to write home about. Most of the time, the strategy is just let go of the ball and ground pound them. Sometimes they also just don't die, they only get stunned and you just gotta kind of move on past them, which just really isn't that satisfying. The enemies just end up being like annoying. Like that's what they're there to be. Either just like kicking or eating your ball, just being a nuisance. I guess you could argue that's kind of the point of an enemy in a game like this, but when there's no easy way to kill them, they just kind of feel like an obnoxious obstacle. And the game has plenty of those already, so... Anyway, each of the stages have these little things you collect called garibs. I always thought they kind of look like little flying carpets. So each stage has a certain amount of these flying carpets to find, and if you get them all in a single world, you get a secret stage for that said world. On my first run through this game, I didn't get 100% on a single damn level. I would roam around these stages, sometimes extremely tiny stages mind you, for upwards of like 20 to 30 minutes and would just not find the 5 to 10 carpets I was missing. Well, after going back and using my awesome gamer brain, aka YouTube videos, I discovered they are just stupidly well hidden. I have done these first few Atlantis stages hundreds of times as a kid and never knew you could break this wall. But regardless, I was able to do one world 100% to see what the special stages are, and the special stages are kind of lame, I'm not gonna lie, but I guess they're kind of charming, I guess. I kind of wanted to see what kind of insane, monstrous level design these devs could come up with for these secret levels, you know? Speaking of levels, the level themes are kind of charming, I guess. We got the aforementioned Atlantis theme, a carnival theme, a pirate theme, a prehistoric kind of theme, haunted theme, and a space theme. Pretty standard, but the way they decorate these levels can be so cool sometimes. They definitely wanted the game to have this surreal edge to it. Things are just kind of not easily distinguishable sometimes. They look like they fit the theme, but like, what is this thing? And I guess that's a good segue to mention that I kind of love the way this game looks. On the surface, it kind of just looks like your standard N64 game, but the more you dig and stare at the visuals, the more things look so surreal and weird. The choices of textures and colors in the environment is pretty interesting most of the time. More interesting than it needs to be, at least. I think the first world is my favorite in this regard. Honestly, aesthetically speaking, this world kind of runs circles around the rest of the game. It's got such a cool vibe with the pillars and waterfalls and stuff, and oh man, the music is just legendary in this area. I don't even know what kind of genre this is, but it's just so appealing to my ears. Very, very appealing. I also may be biased because due to only ever getting to like the second world in this game, these first few tunes really stuck with me and are just impossibly nostalgic. Speaking of music, I kinda don't like the music at all besides this world. Oops. It's not bad music, I guess, but it has like no identity. The next world is just kind of carnival music, and the world after that is just sort of pirate sea shanty music. Like, it fits the world's themes, obviously, but in a game like, I don't know, like Paper Mario, its themed music still sounds like Paper Mario music. It all has this cohesive personality. Glover just doesn't really have that. It's just all over the place. I guess I prefer chill ambient music like the Atlantis song rather than, whatever the funny pirate sea shanty music is. But yeah, color me surprised. Despite its problems, I ended up kind of liking this game as I was playing through it. It was frustrating sometimes, and its dips in quality are pretty deep, but when it's working, it's a good time and feels impressively unique. Its gameplay mechanics have this air of confidence to them that I really admire. Like, the devs didn't care if people find it weird and difficult. They wanted to make a game like this because they were confident in those ideas. Oh, also, it was a little buggy, by the way. I had like 1 or 2 soft lock moments and clipped through terrain a few times. I tried not to fault it too much for that. There's a lot of weird physics going on in this for an N64 game. The system was definitely not meant to handle some of this, I guarantee it. Anyways, let's just beat this game finally. The final world is a space world and is, alright. There's this one stage where you have to race to the finish before a door closes, and you have to be, like, stupidly perfect. It's always jarring when this game demands genuinely flawless execution for some of these challenges. And the final boss is the Stitch guy, and he spawns a giant robot, and you just kind of walk up to an opening on his foot, get inside, and start controlling the giant mech. Whoa, and you shoot balls at the Stitch guy until he's dead. It's both really intense and really stupid at the same time. I would have definitely enjoyed a final boss that really tests your skills with the ball, but that may have just drove me insane if it was as demanding as the rest of the game. Or as obnoxious as that Frankenstein boss. You know, I'll take a glorified cutscene boss, that's fine. But yeah, it's defeated, and dies, and explodes, and is killed, yada yada. You go back to the main hub, bring the wizard back, and everything is cool, and you and your brother are just hands again, yay. But apparently, I didn't get everything, so whatever, I'm not doing that. Sorry, Glover. I did it. I finally beat Glover after all these years. That's all I really wanted to do. And it honestly feels really good. I didn't even really consider that I've had this game this long without seeing most of it. It was always a game that was there, but I never gave it any more thought than that. I think that's sort of the reputation this game has for a lot of people. I don't hear this game talked about beyond a few passing comments about it. I wouldn't call it underrated or anything, it's probably very appropriately rated, but I do think it's a little unappreciated maybe. The game is super unique, probably one of the most unique ideas for a platformer on the N64, and the N64 had games like Chameleon Twist, so that's saying something. Like I said before, despite the issues, this game has a level of confidence I just don't see anymore. Mechanics that demand a lot from you, and level design and ideas that trust you will commit to that demand. I respect it, and don't see that often in platformers. A very adjacent and albeit much better example is the game Penny's Big Breakaway that came out recently. Weirdly enough, one of the inspirations for making this video was a constant question I was asking while playing this game. Why does this remind me of Glover? And, you know, I think I kind of get why now. Penny's mechanics are also insanely unique and physics-based, and the devs don't just hope that you use and appreciate these unique ideas, they craft levels that truly take advantage of it and expect you to engage with it fully. Penny's Big Breakaway is at least like 500 times better than Glover, but the point still stands that I appreciate them for similar reasons. If you get a chance to try Glover, I'd say it's worth it. You may be more tolerant to the jank and frustration that the game has. If so, there is a really cool game here. It sucks they never got to refine the idea in a sequel. Oh wait, Glover 2 was a thing at some point, but the devs apparently made too many copies of Glover 1 and basically had to cough up like millions of dollars for that extra unsold stock, so funding for 2 just wasn't there. Man, that's a shame. There have been quite a few leaked prototypes of the game, and it seems really interesting. More adventure gamey, it seemed, and also more rare-wary, it also seems. A good amount of the game was done, seemingly. I think the controls are much better, and it seems like they opted to go with the bigger levels, like I had mentioned earlier. Good on them for looking into the future and taking PaperDawN's advice. Glad I could help. I really love the idea that you can just pick up any round object and use it like a ball. The game only really had one scenario coded where you're putting a bunch of random stuff in a pot, like onions and apples and stuff. It seems like it would have been a really fun and cute game. I really wish we had gotten this, but I guess I'm glad any bit is playable though. You can find it on Hidden Palace, I think? Wasn't it like taken down? Oh no, it's still up, that's good. Oh yeah, I should probably talk about that, huh? So more recently, Glover has had a strange history with its rights holders and distribution. It was never released on Virtual Console or anything, and has never really had a port for the last 25 years. There were those bad ports on PS1 and PC, but those don't really count. Those came out right around the same time the N64 game came out. But at some point, the rights to Glover were kinda up in the air. At one point, some company named Golden Mushroom announced that they owned Glover now and would be releasing it and its sequel to Switch, but apparently they only bought the trademark, thinking it meant they owned the copyright to the Glover game itself. How do you fuck that up? And around the same time, the company Pico announced that they owned Glover and would be releasing it. So, Pico is a studio that has been buying the rights to older games from defunct developers to make a quick buck. They'll usually just bundle a game's ROM or ISO with an open source emulator using basic to no video settings or optimization fixes and sell it on Steam for $10. It's leeching and a very stupid product to be selling, but the way the company tries to claim they're all for preservation is a joke. They don't obtain proper rights to use the emulators they use. They try as hard as they can to talk to the least amount of original rights holders as possible to get these games made, and they have, on multiple occasions, been so quick to take down existing ROMs of the games that they now own. Because, their product has literally no value compared to a simple download you can get on EMU Paradise, so you might as well take down the competition. It's really scummy, and a huge sore spot on game preservation. There's another video by Bellular News over the finer details on their track record and the problems they have. I recommend watching that if you're curious. But point is, Glover is now owned by them, and they released a version on Steam, and I am not touching it because I refuse to give them a penny of my money. But it sure is there, and it sure is probably the game. I just don't recommend it though. Just download a ROM in Simple 64 like I did. Also, just a fun fact, after Pico taking down Hidden Palace's ROM of Glover 2, they also teamed up with Limited Run Games to release a physical version of Glover, but not their Switch version. Only a physical N64 cartridge. So basically a reproduced cart of Glover 1. The game that didn't have that sequel they're taking down because of its overproduced cartridges. At this point, Pico should just throw eggs at the original devs' houses while they're at it, I swear. Glover is a game that has existed in my consciousness for basically all of my life. It was one of the first video games I ever touched and left such a huge impression on me. But despite that, I'm just now seeing it through to the end, and only really now reflecting on why something like it would have had such an impression on me. So I guess the moral of the story is it's never too late to fully experience something you may have wrote off in the past. You may find it a more fulfilling experience than you originally thought it'd be. Actually, no. The moral of the story is don't support Pico. I like that moral more. Till next time, friends. Nah, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. Where's Glover? Where'd I put it? Damn it.